Hi folks, I'm Dan McDermott. Welcome to Google Plus Week, our unofficial look at the world's coolest social network. Unfortunately, due to the death of Steve Jobs, there wasn't a whole lot of Google Plus news, but we'll cover what did happen and some new innovations, that sort of thing. We'll also talk about Steve Jobs, the man, the legacy, and the impact that he had on us. And we'd like to get your views as well. Please comment below this video, and let's keep the conversation going afterward. Also, if you like the show, please click the like button. We'd really appreciate it. We have a packed hangout. Let's go right to it. First of all, let's talk to Peter McDermott, a fellow podcaster. Let's ask Peter, what are your thoughts about Steve Jobs as we deal with his loss this week?
Good evening, Dan. Very tragic news that broke on the death of Steve Jobs. The torch has to be carried now by our next generation in telling them how Steve Jobs changed the way we use technology every day in our lives, from our iPhones to our Mac computers, the way we listen to our music. Steve Jobs was certainly an influential innovator and will be held in high regard with all sorts of other inventors and innovators, such as Edison, Einstein, and others who were often regarded as a stepchild. Steve Jobs, of course, adopted. Very sad news, but we now have a job, and that job is to tell our children the story of how Steve Jobs changed the way technology affects our lives.
He did. He reinvented technology several times during the course of his career. J.R. Cook, what are your thoughts on the passing of Steve Jobs?
Well, as you know, Dan, I was never the biggest fan of Steve Jobs, but I mean, I have to give him props. He did a lot to influence technology and bring it forward, and you know, I have all the respect in the world for that. I don't see him as too much of an inventor. He reinvented some technology. A lot of the stuff that he brought was stuff that already existed, and he just did a better job at making it more mainstream. He was a tremendous salesman, tremendous marketer. I wouldn't say so much a inventor, but yeah, I mean, there's a lot of people that are being affected by it. It's sad news. It really is.
Okay, let's go up to the top. Well, the top of my screen. I'm trying to maneuver about 6 different mice here. Adam Benner, what are your thoughts this week on the passing of Steve Jobs?
You know, back in the day, I was never really a fan of Mac computers and all that kind of stuff. I was always, a big Windows guy, just kind of because my dad was. But, ever since I got my iPhone, I've taken a whole new light to Mac, and I was really, really upset to hear about all the news. But I was reading different blogs and articles and stuff that were being streamed to me on Google Plus yesterday, and Peter McDermott actually was in a hangout last night with me on hangout conversations that we did, and I read a part from President Obama's letter about Steve Jobs, and I kind of would like to reiterate that. And it basically said that I think it was like the majority of the people that found out about his death, found out on a device that he created. And that's which is true. That's all. I'm getting an echo. Sorry.
Yeah, I think. Is it Scott? Do you have speakers on or something? We got.
I think it's.
Dan, I think we're good to go.
Okay, cool, okay. Awesome. All right, well, let's actually let Diane, or I'm sorry, Scott Swain. I know you just got in here. Let's bring you in, and what we're talking about. We thought we'd lead with Steve Jobs because really there's not a whole lot going on in the Google Plus world, mainly because everything stopped when we learned that Steve Jobs had passed away. What are you a big Apple user? What are your thoughts? I know you're an observer of Apple.
Yeah, I use no Apple products. I prefer Windows and an Android phone, and I acknowledge the equivalence of Apple products. I don't really think of them as inferior or superior. I just think they're different. I don't really agree with Apple's politics lately, as in all of the suing that they're doing. The whole patent thing is sort of contrary to my philosophy. I believe that for us to move ahead, it's useful to stand on each other's shoulders. In other words, to copy, to share. And I don't believe that Apple has invented as much as some people believe. For example, IBM came out with the first touchscreen. But anyway, to get back to the point, I do admire Steve Jobs. I admire the passion. I admire the vision. I admire many things about him. I've read a lot about him recently, so I'm sort of an Apple hater, but at the same time, Steve Jobs, I think, his commitment to elegance and usability, and the way I hear that designers at his company were given much more power than in many other tech type companies. So there's a lot of things that I feel positive about that man. And so it's a little bit sad that he died, but at the same time, I didn't know him, so I'm not going to lie and pretend that I shed any tears.
Yeah, I think folks going down to the Apple store and lighting candles and stuff, that's a bit much, and some people carried it to an extreme, and then there was sort of this, what the hell's going on reaction I was getting from some folks, and it was sad, and the guy was an innovator. I don't think I own a single Apple product. I don't think I have ever owned any Apple products. I'm a PC guy. I'm an Android guy, and I had to choose, but I basically thought that going PC and Android, Apple's easier, but that's not what I wanted. I want the most flexibility. I wanted to be able to tweak it. I wanted to do what I wanted to do, and I didn't want to be locked into anything. And it seemed like the more open system was Android. So, but I have to admire Steve Jobs at several different stages. The personal computer, in the iPod, and of course getting fired and coming back, the iPhone, not inventing technologies but improving upon them. And I think a couple observations was that they didn't have to make stuff as fancy as they did, but they chose to, and they chose to aim for that consumer market that is trickier. Somewhere I heard they said, consumer versus enterprise, it's a lot harder. Microsoft went after the enterprise market, but Steve Jobs and Apple went after the consumer market, and it's hard because you've got to win them one at a time. In the consumer market, with enterprise, you've just got to win over the IT person or the CFO or whoever's in charge of purchasing for that corporation. And so I hadn't thought of it like that. And then another thing, and I want to throw it back to JR, but another thing I noticed is that some folks had been critical of the Apple press conference that they had. In retrospect, they knew that it's assumed that they knew that Steve Jobs was very, very ill, and that a sad announcement could be pending at any time. And so, with that going on, they forged ahead, and perhaps that's the reason that it didn't. It wasn't the big bang that they were anticipating. JR, had something you wanted to add?
Yeah, I guess to go along about the conference there that you're talking about, I have to give Tim Cook credit because he would have had to have known, obviously, that Steve Jobs was on his deathbed and could have died any time during that, during the conference or shortly after. And to go up there and reveal a product like he did, it would have been tough. So he deserves a little bit of credit since we're all human. Death is part of life. But mainly what I wanted to talk about a little bit was some of the grieving that people are doing. Like, I understand, like, if you're a family with Steve Jobs, if you're a good friend of Steve Jobs, if you're a colleague of Steve Jobs, that, I can understand, the immense in the grieving taking place. I've lost my father 6 years ago to cancer, and it wasn't fun by any stretch of the imagination, and it still hurts today. But then you've got some other people, like I saw Robert Scoble today talk about how I just brought it up, how he's in kind of a funk, and the last time he was in this kind of a funk was shortly after 9/11. And to me, that I understand that Robert Scoble had a lot of, Apple really helped his life. Steve Jobs was a big part of it, but to compare someone's death like that to 9/11, in my opinion, is taken a little too far. And for anybody that was just buying these items and these, iPads and iPhones and Apple computers, to have that kind of grievance is kind of weird to me. I don't fully understand that, and I don't know. I think people maybe need to get some of their priorities straight. Yeah, he was a great guy, but I mean, come on.
Yeah, it seemed that's a bit much, some of that stuff. Anthony, what are your thoughts? Are you a big Apple fanboy? What do you think about the passing of Steve Jobs?
This entire thing is just driven me absolutely nuts. I mean, I'm from Rochester, and a bunch of ideas that Steve has utilized, especially in the early years, came out of Rochester. In fact, Kodak is right now in a big lawsuit with them over the way that the iPhone uses the camera. So I don't know. I really don't want to say what I feel about the situation. I mean, yeah, Steve Jobs innovated, and he's one of the. I would definitely put Bill Gates above him, but he's definitely at the very top of the technical people in the technology field. But I don't want to take too much away from him, but it's kind of frustrating hearing all the people put all this praise on him all of a sudden.
Yeah, I agree. It can get a little out of hand, but I think the guy was obviously an innovator. Okay, so we wish his family well, and we wish Apple well, and we'll see how Tim Cook does. Okay, let's talk about some Google Plus news. I know we had I think Jonathan Maddox, you were talking about one development, and I know Peter had something, and I think maybe JR. So, Jonathan, what were you mentioning before?
I was thinking ahead of myself. All
right, I know Peter's got something.
I remember it was me.
I'll go back to you.
I don't think it was me that said something about.
All right, Peter, I think you were talking about something that Vic said.
Yeah, earlier today there was an announcement that now you'll have the opportunity to manage who is able to notify you using your Google profile account settings. No longer will you have to worry about the litany of notifications for people mentioning you in posts and commenting on posts you've commented on. You can now limit the specific people that are allowed to notify you. This should cut down on some of the notification spam you may have been seeing as your following count increases here on Google+.
Okay, and there's some weird stuff I've seen along those lines. Like if you post something limited and it's not public, and then you decide to make it public, your own post, I don't think it'll let you, right?
That's correct. If a post has been shared in limited circles, a warning will pop up when you go to share that post saying, please be mindful that the person that originally posted this shared this with a limited audience. You, at that point, once a post has been shared to either your circles or your extended circles, but not the public, no one will have the ability to share that with the public. However, if it does reach out to enough extended circles, it could make its way across the social network.
Okay. Yeah, I just thought it was odd that if you wrote a post that you couldn't, and I know the comments don't follow. If you share it, if you post it to limited, like if I posted something just to the callers group, right, that I have a circle of callers, which you were all in, and then I say, okay, guy, blah, 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 and then I want to share it, any correspondence under that would not share it, go with it the second time. But it's odd that I don't think you can even, I don't think you're allowed to do that. I don't think you're allowed to share it publicly. Even if that warning you were talking about, Peter, it says be careful who you share this with. And if you type P, you don't have an option for public. So I guess you could theoretically share it with each individual person. But I mean, that would be mind-numbingly long. Okay, let's see here. I think we had David. Why don't you, you just mentioned something, right? You said something that, what is it? You explain this? You're muted, David. Unmute yourself, buddy.
Is it open yet?
Yep, you're good.
Okay, yeah, basically it's kind of tedious and frustrating when you're trying to plus somebody, whether it's to add to a post or, bring them up for whatever reason with a plus. But now, if you simply type the first 2 digits of their first name and the first 2 digits of their last name, it will auto-filter down to the people that just match that for you. So that's quite beneficial. If you have, let's say, 1,000 people all named John, it's pretty hard to scroll through all those and find them. So, otherwise you're just going to type the entire name. So this way it's just the first 2 characters of each of their names. And it will,
okay. All right, cool. And that is a freaky thing behind you. the mask with the flag going to the eyes. That's it's always it's always the 4th of July at David's house. Okay, let's see who else here. Adam, where's Adam? Adam, what you got, buddy?
Kind of just to reiterate about the whole sharing of posts and whatnot. Earlier we were talking about if you share something and then like somebody posts a comment on it and then somebody else shares it, the comments don't follow, which I would think would be something that should be integrated into Google Plus. So like say I post something and Peter, Dan, John, JR, they all comment on it, and then somebody reshares that post. They have when they reshare it, people that are seeing it for the first time as that share aren't seeing any of the original comments or any of the comments in any shares prior to that, which I think is something that they should change.
Okay. And of course, Diane.
However, you can go to the original post if you want to interact with the original comments.
Right.
Along those same lines, though, something that's it hasn't affected me that badly, although it's happened to me. So far, it hasn't happened in a way that I was that upset about. But when you post something to your limited circles, and somebody goes ahead and shares that publicly by copying and pasting, and then they add you by plussing you inside of their new post, saying, "Hey, thanks, so and so." That like I might post something limited because I don't want it associated with my name publicly. But if somebody else wants to post it public, by all means go ahead. But don't put in my name in your public post because I might not want my name associated with that post. So Google should maybe look into some way of limiting the that type of activity as well. But that's my 2 cents along the same line.
But you can't limit keystrokes. You can't, like if I were to copy and paste something, they can't make that impossible.
No, but if they notice that someone in my circles is posting the same thing that I have posted to limited circles and they're posting it publicly, they can see the same content and therefore put a negative next to my name, so it would not be able to be mentioned publicly with that content.
That's a bit of a stretch, I think. I see where you're coming from, David, but I think
it might be an extension, right?
It might be. I mean, that's like the phone company being responsible if someone says mean thing. If one teenage girl says something mean about another one, and they're supposed to. I mean, they can't. It's a public square with social circles, and sometimes there are jerks in social settings, and we're certainly not immune to that. Okay, cool. Let's see what else we got. Peter has an announcement to make. Just kidding. And then Anthony, where's Anthony here? Anthony, what do you got going on?
I just going back to what you were just talking about. I've noticed a lot of people like to post things in limited circles just by default, and they'll post things that are by their very nature public, like a YouTube video, mostly YouTube videos, and it's kind of annoying when you have a YouTube video that has 10 million views and someone posts it as limited because that's just what they do by default, and I guess you just have to go to the YouTube video and get the share link and post it that way. But it's kind of nice if searching.
Did you notice that on that exact note? Did you notice that the thing they were talking about today? They posted a video about the new, when you share something, whatever, the video that they listed in the post was saved on YouTube as you have to have the link to view it. It wasn't generally available. I wonder if that was a subtle point. I don't know if anyone else noticed that. I'm sure Peter did because he's sharp as a tack and can't defend himself right now because I don't think he's wired in yet.
I'm wired in. I did miss the last comment, Dan.
That's okay. Oh, I was just saying, I don't know if you noticed, Peter, that it's not a big deal. I just thought the YouTube video about the feature they announced today, that YouTube video said you have to have the link to view it. I just thought that was an interesting touch. I don't know if it was. I guess no one else cares about this. And then.
Well, no. Does that not have something to do with when you're uploading a video through Google Plus? Because they still use, the YouTube servers. It's just not branded as YouTube, and those you can only view with a link. So I'm wondering if maybe that was a G Plus uploaded video that was shared.
Oh, I didn't know that. But then you could go in. I guess that would associate with a YouTube account using the same Gmail address as your Google Plus login, correct?
I didn't take it that far, but if one way to learn about it is to upload a video through Google Plus and go through that process, which is actually kind of cumbersome, but definitely an experience that you should take on and check it out, because there's going to be a lot of movement there on how they deal with uploading a video. Like I said, it's cumbersome, and there's a couple of confusing actions that you need to take.
Okay, yeah, and another thing I've noticed is, let me skip that, and let me go to the other thing someone mentioned. Is the other news is the Dalai Lama, and I know J.R. Cook's a huge fan of Tibet and the Dalai Lama, and is going to give us a brief history lesson. I'm just picking on JR. He has no clue.
You're putting me on the spot here, man.
I'm totally putting you on the spot. I'm picking on you. But yeah, the Dalai Lama. I think this is cool, JR. We've talked on the show before about will the soccer bombs come on? Will the just ordinary Joes, not tech geeks, not male tech fans, other people come on like they do on Facebook, and the games helped a lot. And although I'm seeing a few more attempts to entice me into games than I would like to see, but it's not as bad as Facebook. But I think this is cool. The Dalai Lama and Archbishop Desmond Tutu are going to have a Google Hangout tomorrow. I think that's cool. And I can imagine
that's awesome.
I can imagine Bowie, Daniel Bowie from Vancouver, if he were in the Hangout, he would be, Your Holiness, is it Android or Apple? And but yeah, it's interesting. I think that's awesome. That's going to turn Google Plus on to a whole group of people that would never have otherwise paid any attention to it. Because the go ahead. I'm sorry.
Oh, and I'm sorry. I think it will be nice for the masses to bring in some people. I mean, people are going to be very interested in hanging out with the Dalai Lama, because that's just. I mean, we were talking about Steve Jobs earlier, but here's Steve Jobs, and here's Dalai Lama. In my opinion, at least, it'll not only bring in maybe more mass people, but I think it'll bring in a lot more intelligent people as well. And I think that's what the Hangouts. I just had a hangout last night with Chris Perillo and a bunch of other people, and just the Hangouts here. It's really the best feature that Google Plus has, and I think it's the most important feature that Google Plus has. And to bring in the Dalai Lama on a feature like that, as opposed to the Black Eyed Peas last week, will be a huge boost in my opinion.
Yeah, I think it's cool, and the whole family's cool. I remember he had a nephew in the U.S. Who unfortunately died recently, but he came through Front Royal, where we have a newspaper, and my main reporter down there interviewed him, met him at a local restaurant, and he was going on like a walking tour from like around the country just to promote peace or something. And he would ask, people would donate food. I mean, he wasn't rich at all, even though he was the nephew of the Dalai Lama. But he was just go town to town and hold a press conference to talk about peace, and people would give him food or enough money to get to the next town. It was the most incredible thing I've ever seen. Just some guy totally dedicating his life. What he owned was in a bag on his back, and then he ended up getting hit by a car on his peace walk. I mean, it was the crazy, tragic situation, but that was really interesting. And I'll try to post a link on that if this thing becomes a big deal. That story when we interviewed him. But yeah, I think it's cool. I think it opens it up to a whole new demographic group, and I think it's exciting. It's a new thing, and
I think it's just the beginning of what we're going to see as well with Google Hangouts.
Okay. Yeah, I agree. It's changing and growing. I want to one observation I had, and then we want to go completely off topic, because like I said, we try to talk about Google Plus for an hour, and Google Plus news or events or new things, and there really weren't that many new features announced this week, and of course Steve Jobs died, and so that's all anyone talked about for a long time, pro or con, as far as whether he was getting his due or too much or whatever. So even events next week are already canceled, one for Google and one for, I forget the other company, because and people are kind of going crazy. So we didn't have a lot of Google stuff to talk about, so we figured everyone was talking about Steve Jobs on Google Plus, so we would continue in that vein. But I want to talk about Plus because I was thinking when it first came out, it was billed as sort of it's better than Facebook and a replacement for Facebook, and I'm leaving Facebook to go to Google Plus. And really, I don't think it is. I don't think that it is at all really a competitor except for time, but it's not the same thing. Facebook is where I can keep in touch with my mom and my dad and my sisters and my friends and the local restaurant and the coffee shop if they want to invite me to something. But Twitter is somewhere where it's a place I can get news. I can choose specific people and I can follow them and then get automatic updates, and I can spread my own stuff. Google Plus is completely different. And I was thinking that when people ask me what is Google Plus, if they're not on it, or if I'm like an evangelist for it. I mean, I'll get a haircut or I'm in a pet store, whatever. Are you in Google Plus? A guy was fixing my computer and I asked him, a tech, and he didn't really know anything about it, and I was shocked. But when they say, what is it? You say, well, it's social network. It's different. It's not like Facebook, but it's hard to say. And it's hard to imagine what it's going to be down the road. I'm not sure what role it plays. I mean, there are specifics I can list, but it's hard to categorize it. It's hard to categorize Twitter. If someone came from another planet and said, what is Twitter? You would have a tough time explaining beyond it's a microblogging service where you can type 140 characters and they overthrew Egypt. I mean, other than that, to really explain it to somebody, it would be difficult. You almost have to use it for a long time. And I'm trying to see if I'm missing something or what your thoughts are. JR, and then Peter, and then we'll go up to whoever wants to talk on this. What do you think? How would you explain this? Or hasn't your perception changed over time of what you thought it was going to be and what it ended up being and what it's settling down to become?
Yeah, it's changed quite a bit. Originally I thought it was going to be a Facebook replacement, even a Twitter replacement, but it's really neither. It's a good service to have in conjunction with both of them, Twitter and Facebook. It's hard to say. Like, it's a good place for people to come together that have the same ideas with the circle functionality. Like if me and you are Android fans, we can add each other to our Android circles and talk, and share stuff about Android. So we're sharing stuff that we're both interested in, and I think that's kind of what Google Plus is becoming. And then also, with as I said earlier, I didn't think Hangouts were going to be as big of a feature as they were. I had no interest whatsoever in getting on a webcam and visiting with a bunch of people, but after doing it for a couple months now, it's definitely the best feature.
Let me go to. I'm going to go to Scott Swain in a sec, but he has disappeared. Let me get. He'll be back. Let's get. Or Scott, you want to weigh in on this? What have you had the same? Have you had the same thing where you thought Google Plus was going to be a Facebook replacement, but really it's not? Am I wrong here? Or, you know what I mean? It's kind of a totally different thing. What are your thoughts? And how do you describe it? How would you describe it to someone who said to you, what is Google Plus? As I'm sure when you talk to people, it's hard, isn't it? It's hard to answer that question.
Well, first, yes. In the beginning, I thought and hoped that it would be a Facebook replacement because I would rather not check two networks for messages and so forth. I hoped that all my friends would just dive in and leave Facebook, but that was probably unrealistic. Now I juggle. I go between the two. And when I tell people about Google+, what I say is usually something along the lines of asynchronous relationships, and I explain what that means to them. I think it's awesome that you... And now Facebook has that in a manner of speaking, but let's go back a little bit. I love the idea that I can follow what I call elites, which are people that typically have a lot of followers, because not necessarily the famous people, but people that have big ideas, that they have followers because they have big ideas that are interesting and maybe even novel, maybe visionary. And I love that I can follow those people and hear what they have to say without having that obligatory friend relationship. So to me, it's very freeing that we can do that. That people can spread their ideas in that manner. That I could follow. I can listen to what Tom Anderson has to say, and ignore parts of it that I'm not interested in, which might be pictures or whatever. And I love that I can contribute to those conversations, and that if I say something that is intriguing or otherwise valuable, I will be recognized. And yeah, I'd love to say my ego doesn't need that or enjoy that, but it does. So that kind of thing, the asynchronous relationships to me is really valuable, and I think it contributes in a bigger way to worldwide sharing. It's creating, like I'm creating relationships with people that are far away. On Facebook, I have a lot of friends, but most of them are Austin, and so most of them are local friends, and that has its value. But it's like when I go to Facebook, I'm hearing about parties and events and things my friends are doing and whatever, and it's not quite as many, not even close to as many what I call big ideas.
I like the segmentation because I think it's neat that you can separate it. When I want to find out, my buddy, I have people who post, they're drunk at the bar or they're excited about this chamber event coming up. A wide variety of stuff, and I like that I can kind of turn one on. I can kind of shut down my intellectual mode and go to Facebook and turn on my community mode or fun mode and catch up on the crazy people who I count as friends. Okay, Diane, the elusive Diane, tell me what are your thoughts? How has it evolved for you? Because I probably just like you thought, oh, it's Google's answer to Facebook, but really it's unintentional or intentional. It's turned into a completely separate thing, don't you think? What are your thoughts?
Yeah, actually, I jumped on kind of right at the beginning, not in the pre-field space, but I think the first day of the field. And at first I was like, why am I doing this? I don't need any more social networks. But a friend of mine from California, we were Skyping, and he said, you got to watch for the security settings because you can choose who you send information to, which is something that I still haven't quite figured out how to do it on Facebook. I have a variety of interest areas. I'm a politician, so I'm constantly sending out stuff about that. But then the other side is, I work with doing social media for tech clients, and I don't necessarily always need them getting all my political stuff. So that's really impressive. But the thing that I think is most unique about Google Plus and why it has staying power is that it's an integrated platform. You can do your work, all your work is in the cloud. It's on the Google Documents. You can share with other people. You can video conference about it. It's not just a social media site. It's an all-inclusive integrated platform, and I think that is an online workspace that allows you to really blend the professional side of life and also the personal side. Facebook, it's all one or the other. Twitter, like you said, is all about getting your news. And I can't segregate out what I send to my folks on Facebook. I have a fairly large following, and I wish they would all jump ship and go to Google Plus because I'd be happier that way. But the reality is there's just a different function for it.
Yeah, Adam, I kind of like having both because, like I said, there are times when I want to catch up on my local stuff, and there are times when I want to use You know, I want to explore intellectual stuff on Google Plus or tech news, and then I want to anybody I'm following on Twitter, which is a short list, but like Larry Sabato, the UVA political scientist, who I just love, and I have that sent. It's the only Twitter person I have sent directly to my phone. But they're kind of different. There are times when you want each thing, right? What do you think, Adam? Unmute.
No, that's right. I mean, I agree with that. My I unmuted.
You're good. I'm sorry. There was a delay. Go ahead. You're good.
Okay, cool. When I explain something when I try and explain Google Plus, I tell them, imagine if Facebook and Twitter had a baby. That's kind of what Google Plus is, because you can follow people, yet it also encompasses a lot of the many features of Facebook. But I believe that I'm not trying to convince people to leave Facebook and join Google Plus. Facebook is exactly how you said it earlier. I use Facebook for family. That's the easiest way for my family to communicate with each other. Google Plus, it's a little more integrate and it's a little more tedious. So I would say that it's a lot easier for my family to use Facebook, and I don't think some of them would understand the concept of Google Plus. But I definitely believe in keeping them separate.
Yeah, it is hard to explain. It's just like Twitter is. Although Twitter is very simple, but it's like Othello, a minute to learn, a lifetime to master. As far as the understanding, David, what do you think about Google Plus in general, or what do you think? Has your vision of it changed over time, and where do you think it falls in the mix? It's not really a replacement, is it?
No, absolutely not. In fact, it kind of works better that they both exist, because you can share, not necessarily simultaneous, but you can. I link public posts on Facebook from Google Plus, and that kind of shows these people that they can move over and that there's better content or more or different content. But if you look at what Google calls Google Plus, it kind of opens up your eyes a little bit more if you take a bird's eye type of view of Google. And they call it a project, but real life sharing rethought for the web. So when you start applying all of the Google services, the integration that's already happened and the integration that's coming, the live video with 10 people, and that's going to expand, I'm sure, the broadcasting of Hangouts, which is also coming, the integration of Google Voice, already, Gmail is getting tied pretty closely. They've opened up an SMS feature where you can, post via SMS, like Facebook. Again, I'm not really comparing the two, other than if you look at Google as a whole, as the bigger picture of everything that they offer, this is a platform that really isn't just a posting platform. It really does live up to what they describe it as, real life sharing rethought for the web. And that's absolutely what it is. As far as Facebook being better for family and the less tech and the less maybe educated or the less interested in topics other than what their grandson did at the pool. If you go back to the fall of MySpace, I remember telling everybody on MySpace, look, you guys should be ahead of the crowd and move over to this thing called Facebook. You're going to eventually end up there anyway. And it was a little bit difficult at first once people got into Facebook to understand how it worked, because although similar, it was very different. And it's the same thing with Google Plus. More and more people are jumping on at their own pace. And of course, being helped by people like us. But definitely, it's much bigger than the platform that we're even using today.
Okay. And I'm going to throw it to Peter. But first, I just want to ask a show of hands. How many, when you found out Steve Jobs had died, how many of you found out from Google Plus? Just raise your hand. I did. I was on a Skype call with a guy. It says 1, 2, 3, 4. Isn't that interesting, though, that's become a source for our news, Google Plus. So Peter, how has it changed for you? Is this what you thought it was going to be from the beginning, or has it evolved or changed, or we just didn't quite get it in the beginning? What do you think?
Well, Dan, I don't think it's changed so much in the fact that there are now more users and people are getting a little lazier with what they're sharing. That's something I've noticed if you kind of look at people's streams from when the social network opened in its limited beta, when we all kind of joined up on here, up until where it is now, where anybody can log on and get an account. The quality of the content is a little bit less, but I think the goal, and you're not going to hear this communicated from Google, is that the internet as itself was becoming more of a pull media. A pull media is something that you have to go and seek out yourself. So you have to know what you're interested in finding to get that pull media. It's like when you select a channel on the TV, you're pulling which channel you want to watch. Now they're pushing what content you're watching. Now that's what the divider is with Google Plus versus Facebook or Twitter. Google Plus, as it exists with the stream, I think it's capable of pushing the internet to you because, I think people were spending less time discovering websites and more time just sharing photos and talking to people they already know. I think part of what Google Plus is to help people rediscover the internet as it is by pushing content that you're able to curate through your circles and pick what interests you and who has similar interests to push those websites to you. So I think Google Plus is going to be more of a tool to push the internet to you versus how we've all been pulling it for the last decade.
Okay, and then Anthony, you didn't quite figure it out either in the beginning, did you? Did you think this was going to be a replacement for Facebook, and then you're like, well, it really isn't?
I was hoping that it would be a replacement for Facebook, but I don't know. Because of the way that the circles work, and you can just put people you want to follow about certain things into their own those circles. For me, it's not so much a problem of I don't know. Obviously, I'm still using Facebook, and I'd like to use just Google Plus, but my desire hasn't been fulfilled with reality, I guess.
Yeah, I don't know if it's designed really. I don't know if it's ready. It doesn't really have all the features Facebook has. I don't know. It'd be interesting to see. I kind of enjoy being able to go, but I find myself the first thing I do, I check Drudge Report and Google Plus, and then I check my TechBuzz app and a couple other apps on my phone, and I try to get the latest tech news, the latest whatever scandals going on, or and then Google Plus, and then I will go to Facebook maybe once a day or twice a day, but I don't use it like I used to. And anybody who messages me, it'll go right to my phone. Other times it just gets kind of lost in the clutter, I guess.
Yeah,
there are a lot of notifications that I don't see because it's just too busy now. I don't know what the hell's going on over there.
Yeah, for me, Facebook is more about people that I interact with in real life, and Google Plus is I've found a lot more people that I would have never found on Facebook because I don't know, Google Plus is a lot more open than Facebook is. I found a few people on Facebook, but nowhere near the amount of interesting people that I found on Google Plus.
I wouldn't have met anybody in the room. There's 8 other people here, and I wouldn't have met any of them but for Google Plus. Jonathan, what do you think? Did you figure this out from the get-go, or were you kind of surprised like the rest of us?
I figured it out from the get-go because I came on board on the 20th, the night of the 27th. And I got my personal invite from a Google employee.
Okay.
That I know real personally. Bradley.
Okay. So it's is it hard for you to describe what this is? I mean, it's kind of a different service, right? Do you view this as a replacement for Facebook, or is this complementary?
I would say, as I've been saying for a while, when everybody asks me what is Google Plus, I kind of like sum it up to a real clever way. It's like Facebook, Twitter, Skype, and MySpace, all on steroids.
Okay, and then I think, man, you guys are chatting so much I can't find what I said. I think is it JR. All right, you guys are over. We need a second chat room, just like we need a third social network, right? Am I right, though? I mean, what do you think? Am I crazy, or is it sort of we all thought it was going to be a Facebook replacement, but it turns out it wasn't?
Yeah, you actually started with me earlier, but
oh, okay.
Close
the topic then. Sorry.
Yeah, but for me, it's already starting to replace a little bit. I still go to Facebook. I mean, my family's over there. They're not going to switch. They maybe eventually. Who knows? But that's besides the point. But I mean, when you're talking about how did we find out about Steve Jobs, and I actually stepped away from the internet for an hour, came back. First thing I did was I hopped on Google Plus, and I saw my stream filled up with Steve Jobs stuff, and I even made a post that I'm sorry that I stepped away from the internet because it obviously killed Steve Jobs. But you know, it's something that whenever I get on the internet now, that's the first thing I go to. So yeah, it's definitely made an impact on my life at least.
All right, and let's go now. I want to totally switch gears here, and this is totally unrelated to Google Plus. Except Google Plus is Google's I think a publicly traded company, so I guess you can buy stock on Wall Street. So I don't know, that's BS, right? Adam,
Dan, they're only $515 a share, so
you know I have as we well know, Peter, with all the money we make from Google AdSense. All right, so let's talk to Adam. About the Occupy Wall Street thing. We're totally out of topics about Google, so we're just going to do this because he was basically saying stuff, and I thought, well, we can have a nice little argument. If anyone else in the I want to get through this, and then then we got to close. But I want to hit Adam on this, and then if you really want to weigh in on this, go ahead. And I see one guy's already got his mask on. That's awesome. All right, so Adam, tell me what your thoughts are about the whole Occupy Wall Street movement. And you said that you weren't happy with Fox News, Bill O'Reilly's coverage.
No, I mean, you know, it's just ridiculous how a lot of these politicians, how a lot of these, you know, public media people are almost exploiting, you know, what's going on. I think what's going on is awesome. I am a full supporter of it. You know, the whole thing with the Bill O'Reilly, you know, that was just one specific clip that just stood out to me. And you know, with his comments and, you know, the way that, you know, he basically said that the people on Wall Street are they're bums, they don't want to shower, they don't want to work, they don't want jobs, which is completely, you know, he's like, and they told us that. No, nobody said that they didn't want a job. Nobody said that they weren't going to take a shower.
They found, okay, look, some of them were hippies, and that was feedback. But in their defense, they went there, and these were real people. Now, was that representative of the larger group? I don't know. I wasn't there. But they did find actual people who were loons, and to use a Bill O'Reilly term. And they were put up as, you know. But what exactly have they accomplished? They've been out there a few weeks. What has changed? Or, I mean, it's like, oh, and there's protests going on. But it doesn't seem... Isn't it kind of the same group that pickets at the WTO every year or whatever?
No, I mean, you know, you gotta look at it from almost like a generalized standpoint. You know, Occupy Wall Street was like the first movement in this whole hashtag Occupy whatever, because now it's worldwide. It is completely worldwide. And yes, Peter McDermott, we Occupy Hangouts. We definitely do, obviously, as we are now. But you know, it's a huge movement, and I don't remember exactly who said it, and I'm not going to take credit for saying this in the beginning, but you know, this whole Occupy movement is the biggest political movement since civil rights. I mean, it's taken over not just a city, not just a country, but it's all over the world now, which is just awesome. And you know, we were talking the other day with. I can't remember his last name. It's Rob something. But he was talking about how if we could get 40 people there are 535 political offices across the country. If we could get 40 people to go to each one of those and say, I want to talk to my representative, I want to talk to my congressman, I want to talk to, you know, whoever, and they say, oh, well, they're not available right now, and you know, we have a Google, but they say, well, he can do like a web chat or something like that. Oh, well, here, I have my phone, and I happen to have a Hangout ready for him right here. So we can, and then we could actually, capture that and broadcast that and continue to do that. And they're not going to, they're not just going to sit there and sit back and just take it. What are they going to do when they have like an uprising, especially like across the country like that? The only thing they can do is, I don't want to say give in, but, actually, don't sit there and say you live by the people and you live for the people when you're not even really representing the views of your people.
Yeah, look, straight up, the economy sucks. And I didn't like, they said that they were going to, basically it was a bailout of Wall Street, too big to fail. But if you have a business, Adam, it's not too big to fail. You can go out of business. But they prop up these guys, and that's real frustrating. But I just don't think, going down and I'm not a big protest guy. I don't sit there and chain myself thinking that that's going to make a difference. I don't know if it accomplishes much. It did in the civil rights movement, but I don't see.
But see, the president even jumping on board Occupy Wall Street.
That's right.
Yeah, he is jumping on board because I watched the live conference that he had, and he was in full support of it. He was telling, and he lashed out against Congress about it, and he said if y'all don't pass this bill, I want y'all to do. He wants the Congress to do him a big favor. Tell the people why you didn't pass the bill. Don't tell him. Tell the people.
Yep. I saw a clip of one particular person that was actually part of the whole protest on Wall Street, and I don't remember exactly what he did, but he was pretty much defenseless. And there is actually like a video of cops, like he's on the ground, and these cops are kicking him, punching him, beating him. He comes up, they broke his glasses. It's like, are you kidding me? Like, is that seriously? How is that? How is that legit? Like, unless people are causing riots, the police have no right to do anything to any of these people. None.
No, they're not going around setting things on fire. They just screaming out loud. That's
exactly
basically what they're doing.
Isn't the First Amendment like freedom of speech?
Yeah.
Our country was built on protest. Our protest built our country, and absolutely, human and civil rights are both getting stomped on, like we knew that they would. However, we got another one in there. Right on. Basically, voting doesn't work. Obama would not have been voted in office if all of the hippies and all of these other people who aren't voting, if he didn't vote, Obama would have never been in office. But the reason he's in office is because those people wanted a change. They needed a change. They were demanding a change by using the electoral system. And guess what? The electoral system doesn't work if you're voting for somebody in a broken government. Our government is broken. It is not working the way it's supposed to, which is for the people.
I agree, Diane. Let me get Diane. We got to close. Diane, what are your thoughts on this? Are you get ready to pack up your stuff and head to Wall Street and sit down and chain yourself to something and think the world's going to change because of that?
Well, that was a very Fox News-esque intro. No, actually,
it's true though. What the hell have they accomplished? I'm a news guy. I do a news show. I own 3 newspapers. I don't have a clue, really, because it doesn't matter. It's not going to change anything.
Let me educate you.
Go ahead.
Let me educate you.
Educate me.
All right.
You have too much headroom in your shot.
Let me finish. You want to know what occupation does. Let me tell you what occupation does.
What impact does it have? What impact does this particular movement have? Go ahead.
Well, I'll keep telling you if you don't talk over me. No, 5 people back in the 1960s sat down in a diner.
I conceded that. I know that. I'm saying, what is this particular movement doing?
No,
what impact does it have? I understand the civil rights movement. I memorized Martin Luther King's "I Have a Dream" speech.
Right, well, that's good. That's a start.
But I'm saying, I don't like the Wall Street bailout. I'm just saying, what are these guys doing? This particular movement.
You're not a news person. You're just talking over me right now.
Sorry.
No, occupation is taking up space. And what they've done is to change the media conversation entirely. right up
They're
until
not
now,
changing it though.
They're
They're not changing it at all.
They're not changing
Nobody's
anything.
reporting on it. Look at
You
the CNN
just
app on the
said-
iPad. There are 0 stories about it. Nobody's
That's not
covering it
true.
except MSNBC.
That's not
Nobody's
true.
covering it. They're not
CNBC
changing
has been
anything
covering it.
because
the
they
Google
do
Plus
not
show.
have an explicit
So
demand.
you guys, can you let her have her say? You're like totally. You're not even letting her finish.
All right, go
Yeah,
ahead. Go ahead.
I think so. I don't know. Maybe it's because I'm a woman. It's easy to talk over me. But let me tell you something. Earlier this year, in July, I had 4 constituents come up to me on my way to work and say, am I going to get my Social Security checks next month? And the reason they were asking me that is because Congress had so debacled everything, and it was entirely because politicians were bought and paid for in D.C. I am a publicly financed legislator, which means that I am entirely beholden to my people, and I am one of the most outspoken state legislators you will find. And the reason for that is because I don't have to wear patches saying who owns me. I don't have patches saying ExxonMobil, saying the American Legislative Exchange Council. I have people that come up to me and say, I need help with something. And that's what's broken. When we talk about why this government is not working, it's because it is entirely bought and paid for by the very people in Wall Street. And you're right, Adam, it's not going to happen overnight. And when we elected Barack Obama, it was not yes, I can, it was yes, we can. And right now, you're seeing the we on Wall Street. And the fact of the matter is, maybe we're not getting on all the major news shows, but right here in Maine, Occupy Maine started up, and almost every single news company showed up to report on that. Every single one. And it's the local media where the conversation changes.
Diane, I hope you come on every show.
You know what? Actually,
That's your demographic, though, and trust me, I totally support the movement. But the problem is, it does not have a defined demand, and the problem is, it's where the places are doing it. You're talking about doing it in Maine.
The lack of a defined demand is absolutely part of why it has become a movement and not a protest. A protest would have a demand, and it would get squashed by the media. It would get squashed by O'Reilly. It would get
I was kind of interested in hearing what Peter was saying.
The thing is, okay, you're talking about living in Maine and it being all over the news in Maine. That's great. Let's look at a geopolitical map and let's look at the colors of the states and let's figure out what states are going to cover it and what states aren't. Who is tiptoeing around whether or not to support it, basically saying that, hey, here's what I've tried to do, just defending that he...
No, sorry. Had to.
All right,
let
me get.
Wow, that wasn't cool. Let him talk.
Yeah, I can't hear him.
I think
no, it's okay. I keep getting
muted
muted here, so I'll take the hint.
Oh, I didn't realize you were being muted. I'm sorry. I don't know who's. Okay, Jr. Why don't you solve this for us? I'm just kidding.
Well, first of all, I think a lot of people need to calm down just a little bit. This yelling's a little crazy. I know that you guys, I know that you're very fired up about this, and you should be. Everybody should be. You know, the Tea Party has been fired up about basically the same reason you guys have been arguing. What you need to do, in my opinion, is y'all need to come together and resolve the issue. Sitting here arguing about, you know, these people gotten beaten, this media is not doing what they need to do. That's all just noise. Just plain noise. You need to just, if you want to do something, you need to figure out exactly how you're going to resolve that. And
JR,
then,
that's exactly it. Figuring out exactly how to do it. The problem with this movement, the problem with the 99%, and the problem with Occupy Wall Street is I work for corporate America. I have a job in a publicly traded company where I make a salary, I get paid a bonus, and I have a vacation. When I see fellow Democrats and fellow libertarians holding up signs saying profit is bad, it just makes my head explode. It makes my head absolutely explode because they're sending mixed messages and they're not they're slapping the hand that feeds them. I agree that a New York City police officer should not be paid
You don't get it because you're not listening.
You're not listening.
David,
You're not
please
listening
lose the
to
mask.
people.
Can you lose the mask?
No.
All right. All right. Okay, folks. I appreciate y'all. It was great. I enjoyed it. I thank everyone who hung out with us. And Diane, please come back. I didn't mean to. I'm sorry I cut you or interrupted you or whatever. But you're awesome, and I hope you'll come on regularly. Okay, so that's it for the show. If you enjoyed it, please click the like button. Please subscribe, and please check us out next week. We're live on Justin TV every Friday night, 8 p.m. Eastern Time. I'm Dan McDermott. Thanks so much. This is Google Plus Week, and I'll see you next time.